Hey everyone, welcome to the Rig Report. This is episode 11. I just want to start off by saying thank you to everyone who has been listening to the show. This was a concept that I came up with right after the games last year. Took us about 6 months to implement. We are now on our 11th episode and we couldn't be more stoked. I do want to share with you that my mission for this was to give athletes and coaches a safe place to come tell their story and for us to get it out there so that people could hear what was going on with these athletes. I think they are the most underappreciated people in this space and need to have a platform for them to share their story. What happened last weekend was miraculous. We had Logan Ewing on last Saturday, went live on YouTube. He had not heard back from CrossFit after 4 attempts, was not going to the semifinals, even though he did the work that should have got him there. 3 hours after our show, Logan got his invite to the Atlas Games. I could not be more thrilled. That is the proof of concept that I wanted for this show. I want to have a place for people like Logan to come talk to us and be able to tell their story safely and get something to happen. So thank you, Logan, for doing that. Thank you for proving our concept. And thank you for listening to this show. If you like what you hear, make sure you hit that like button, smash that subscribe button, because we're only going to get better going from here, and hit the notifier so you're the first to know when new content is available. This week on the Rig Report, it is a Mother's Day edition. I want to say happy Mother's Day to all the mothers out there. It's coming this Sunday. We're so stoked that you're listening to us. I know my mom listens to every episode, and I have a special treat for you at the end of this episode. But first, we're going to talk to Alex Gazan, who had some trouble growing up and with her parents and really had to fight through some things. And she shares that with us and how she found CrossFit and how a community stood behind her and supported her through a lot of the difficult times in her life and got her to where she is now, the 12th ranked CrossFitter in North America going into the semifinals. Here is Alex Gazan. So we are here with Alex, and it's now Willis, correct?
It's Gazan, so it was Willis.
It was Willis, now it's Gazan. So you were Willis growing up, now you're Gazan, because you're married.
I am, yeah.
You are. And you are 20 years old.
I got married at 18.
And I read that that's because you're an old soul.
Yes, I'd say so.
So what makes you an old soul?
I kind of just had to grow up really fast. I kind of grew up with a lot of hardships with my parents, and you just kind of had to rise to the occasion. And yeah, that's the simple answer.
Yeah, so I read in an article that your parents struggled with substance abuse. And so what difficulties did that make for you as a child growing up?
I'll preface this by saying I was lucky that they always cared about me and loved me so much. So the love of them was always there. They just they struggled a lot with substance abuse, and that led to things like DUIs, jail time, other criminal charges, things that had long-term consequences. I had to live with my aunt and uncle for a time period. Financially, there was no money, so I had to work if I wanted to participate in sports, or if I wanted to buy anything. So it was more just a lot of them not being there, or whether that was physically not being there or mentally. I just kind of had to take care of myself a lot, and because they did love me, it just really hurt to see them and at the time I didn't understand that it wasn't personal. When you're young, it feels personal. Oh, if you loved me, you would stop. If you loved me, you wouldn't hurt me. But looking back, now they're mostly sober, and looking back, I can at least say I always knew they cared. It just brought other challenges that made things hard sometimes.
Just the inability to be able to take care for you.
Yeah, and like I have a young brother. He's five now, but my mom had him when I was 15, and right after he was born, she relapsed and went through a lot of like issues, and that was really hard because when he was born, like my whole goal was just to keep him from that, and not being able to do that was really hard.
I want to talk about how you got into CrossFit. What was the mental shift from that freshman year of I just want to be skinny to
Yeah.
wow, I like this?
And my health teacher, not the teacher of that class, but my health teacher, I was really close with her. Um, and she kind of knew like me as an athlete and had asked if I'd done CrossFit. And at the time, like the only thing I knew about it was my dad called them gym monkeys because he was a bodybuilder, and he was like, yeah, like don't do that. And then I knew it was expensive just because like the class format and um, yeah, a little more on like the expensive part of the gym kind of thing. And so I told her no, and that like I wasn't super interested, but she was like, I think you should try it. And she asked, I don't know if you guys are familiar with Regan Huckaby.
Yeah.
Yep.
So she's from my hometown, and she asked if I knew her, and at the time I didn't. Um, and so she like showed me her picture and like showed me her Instagram. I was like, oh my gosh, like this chick is cool. Like I want to be like her. Um, but granted, like it was still expensive, and at that time I was like paying for everything. I was doing lacrosse. Like it just didn't really quite seem in the cards. And I showed up to class like the following week, and she like, handed me a piece of paper, and she's like, this is Reagan's number. She's expecting a call from you at 5. Like we want you to call her, and we want you to do CrossFit. And I was like, okay. And so I called Reagan, and she was super sweet. She kind of just talked to me about CrossFit and like how their gym worked, because her and Karen and another lady, Christine, were all opening their own gym. And in my head the whole time, she was talking about like one-on-ones and like the reservations for classes. It sounded really expensive too. So I was kind of like, this is cool, but like in my head, like not getting my hopes up kind of thing. And before I could even ask about price, she was like, and before you say anything, like we just want you to come work out. And she's like, that was like right around a time where my parents were going through like my mom had just gotten another DUI, and things were just like really bad. So she was like, before you can say anything, like we just want you to come work out. And yeah, so I showed up, and like the rest was kind of history.
Thank you so much, Alex. And you can see the full interview with Alex Gazan on the Clydesdale Fitness and Friends podcast this Monday. Now we're going to move to Cheryl Nasso, who's going to talk about breaking that CrossFit plateau. She is our nutrition expert. She is the host of Fit Body Secrets, and check her out as she talks about breaking the CrossFit plateau.
What is up, guys? Coach Cheryl here from Fit Body Secrets, and I'm here to bring you guys a little tip. And this is mostly for primarily those of you guys that have been in the CrossFit world for a long time, or maybe you're just starting your CrossFit journey and you are kind of either in a plateau or you're starting your journey and you're like, where do I want to go? How do I approach this? Because it can be really overwhelming when you first start with things. And then when you've been doing it for a long time, you get a little complacent and you don't really know how to take that next step. And so with CrossFit, I find that one of the biggest mistakes I see in CrossFit classes, those of you guys that are like what I like to call quote unquote Gen Pop, and you go to the gym and you like working out with your friends, you have a good workout, you leave and you go about your day, is that there are essentially 3 different types of CrossFitters that you're going to find in the gym. So if you're listening to this and you're brand new to CrossFit, hopefully this will resonate with you so that as you're starting your CrossFit journey, you can map it out a little bit differently and not become the one that doesn't continue to see progress. Because I've been doing CrossFit for 12 years now, I think almost 13. And I'm actually still making progress. There are some things that kind of have leveled out. I probably won't have much gains in them, but I can actually still make gains in little areas if I actually focus my effort on those. So first of all, there are 3 types of CrossFitters that I want to talk about, and they all start with the letter C. Number 1, you've got the complacent CrossFitter. And this is the person that's been in the CrossFit class for the last 7 years, 5 years, 3 years, 1 year. They're using the exact same colored band on their pull-ups. They always pick the exact same weight on every single movement. They always scale the runs the exact same way, or maybe they don't run because they avoid it. Whatever it is, they are that complacent CrossFitter. They go to the gym. Now, it's not wrong to be a complacent CrossFitter. It likely means you're happy with where you're at. You are not looking to make any positive changes in your life. You've kind of gotten into a routine where you're happy with how you look and feel. You go to the gym because it makes you feel good. And that is an okay place to be. However, if you are in that place and you don't think it is possible to make changes, I'm hopefully going to give you some tips today that are going to actually help you overcome that feeling of like, this is as good as it gets, because it's not that way. There are some things you guys can be doing, even following a group program, that can help you overcome that complacency, that little bit of a plateau in your life, no matter what age group you're in, no matter how long you've been doing CrossFit for. The second CrossFitter you have is the competitive CrossFitter. And a lot of people that when you're first starting CrossFit, it can be super exciting to get in and just like want to go hard and like always, whether you're worried about being the last one done and you're kind of like, I'm going to just do half the workout today because I don't want to be the last one done. Or you are always in the gym, like doing more. And there is a good place for competition in CrossFit. I think it's what makes people push themselves a little bit harder. But I also think that sometimes it's important to realize that sometimes we need to just be okay with competing with ourselves and giving our best effort based on where we're at today versus focusing so much on the bigger level of competition. And you can compete without having to be competitive in the top level of this sport. You can actually be competitive, like I said, in just your gym class, but it comes down to honestly what I'm going to talk about in a little bit, which is breaking down some of the foundational movements if you're newer to CrossFit, making sure that you're really getting the hang of those things. And then the last one, which is what I think that most people need to become, whether you're competitive or not, whether you're looking to achieve better health and fitness, or you actually are wanting to go competitive with things, is you need to be consistent. And this is where the complacent CrossFitter is likely very good at consistently showing up to the gym every single day. They're there all the time. They're probably Monday through Friday or Monday through Saturday, whatever it is. They are always in the gym class. They hate missing their day. They've got that consistent habit of gym routine built in. Now, here's where we can kind of make some changes into things. And I kind of wrote some notes down because I think that it's really important for you guys to understand that I usually give mostly nutrition tips. And I'm going to start by saying that when you first start CrossFit, and even if you are reading or reviewing this and you're kind of like, you've been plateaued for a while, think of this like baseline foundation is at the bottom of the hierarchy of CrossFit. And I think I mentioned this in my last rig report was that, or my last tip for the rig report, guys, is that the bottom is nutrition, and it's nutrition and lifestyle for me. I think that most people think that it's just, I think nutrition and like your habits in your day matter first and foremost, getting those things checked off. Like you have a gym routine, you have healthy habits with your food, you have good sleep routine, all of those things matter, but nutrition is the foundation. And if you've never taken the time to learn how to eat, and I'm not talking about challenges, I'm not talking about cutting things out, I'm talking about actually how to fuel your body for maintenance, and then knowing what you might want to adjust from maintenance for whatever your body needs to be its best, whether it is you're trying to lose weight, whether you're trying to gain weight. Nutrition is the foundation of that. And it's more than just following a diet plan, clean eating, all that. So there's a lot more to it than that. So that should be the bottom. So if you are just starting CrossFit or you are doing it for a long time and you're kind of complacent, I would start by just working on your nutrition a little bit, getting things dialed in, maybe looking at nutrition a little bit differently outside of the diet lens of weight loss and weight gain, and into the diet lens of how do I look and feel my best. So that's number one. So the first thing I'm going to talk about today, as I'm talking about nutrition and what you guys can be doing to make some further progress, is tracking. So tracking food is a great tool for you guys to assess how the amount of food you're eating and the types of food you're eating are affecting how you look, feel, and perform. Along with tracking food is tracking your workouts. And this isn't just like, oh, I did great on this workout or I didn't do great on this workout, but like keeping track of your weights, learning how to pace yourself in workouts. Whenever you see workouts come up with running, are you always the last one done in class? Because that data can be super important for you to make gains, whether you're new in CrossFit or you've been doing it for a long time. Now, the good thing about it being a newbie in CrossFit is you don't have any bad habits or likely any kind of biases unless you have a previous background, but you can actually start to bias just general fitness at that point. If you've been doing it for a while, you know where you kind of bias, you know where you like to fall, you know where you like to gravitate towards and where you tend to avoid things. So when you're tracking that data, now that data can give you an idea of where you can actually be periodically building in time in your CrossFit life, in your CrossFit gym routine, to be able to actually work on bringing up those weaknesses. And this is where you can actually start to make a lot more gains in your fitness, in your body composition, in your health, without feeling just like you're just going to the gym and checking the boxes off. And it might be like, you know what? I'm going to do 6 weeks of like, I'm going to focus on my endurance. And maybe you start like a 1 mile running program or whatever that might look like. Maybe you are always running whenever the workouts call for rowing. Maybe you are adding in a run, every other day. Maybe you're doing that. You're focusing a little bit of effort on something else. Maybe you realize that you really have a hard time with Olympic lifting. So maybe you're showing up every day that there is a snatch or a clean and jerk built in. Maybe you are actually asking your coach for like, hey, can you just give me like a quick, like 10-minute, snatch progression that I can just work on after the class is over with. Maybe you're always substituting a specific movement with that movement to get better at it, more proficient at it. You're always working on those things. So periodically having those goals built in can now give you a focus point and give you something to focus on, so that you're not just going in and checking the boxes every single day. And then like, you don't have to do it for a long period of time, but maybe you're shifting. So maybe you're doing like 6 weeks, I'm going to work on my endurance. I'm going to work on building up my running endurance. Then maybe you're like, all right, I'm going to spend 6 weeks working on like my gymnastics. And then maybe after that, you're like, okay, maybe I should probably work on my strength. And then you can kind of cycle in that way a little bit. And usually what this does is it doesn't require you actually added time in the gym. What it just requires is a little bit more intent. And that is the last thing that I want to talk about today, is that I think the main reason why people stop seeing progress in CrossFit is one of two reasons: injury or intent. Is injuries happen and they're not addressing things like mobility, actually working on some activation skills. They're just kind of always in and out, and they aren't spending the time that they need to actually make sure they're keeping their body healthy. But also intent, that they are just going into the gym without putting in that little extra oomph of intensity that they might need to get themselves to the next level. So in order for you to have an adaptation in the positive, meaning you guys want to build muscle, get fitter, you have to have a stressor. So here's my tip to you today, is to add a little bit more stress on your life in terms of your fitness goals. So if it is starting with like dialing in the nutrition, that can be a little bit of a stressor in the beginning, trying to figure things out. If it is starting to track things and assess things, and maybe you're adding a little bit more effort and intensity on your running or your conditioning, that is going to add a little bit of a stressor. But guess what? That's where positive adaptations happen to create a fitter, healthier version of yourself. So hopefully this tip was helpful for you wherever you're at in your fitness journey. Don't forget, tracking your data is important. And I hope you guys have an amazing week.
Thank you so much, Cheryl. Great information as always. And make sure to check out more from Cheryl Nasso on Fit Body Secrets right here on the Clydesdale Media Network, or wherever you listen to podcasts. Next up, we have Fantasy Fitnessing. They are awesome. Catherine and Dave are always here to give us all the latest stats and good predictions about what they think is going to happen in the upcoming semifinals. This week, they take a sneak peek look at weeks 2 and 3.
Hi, everyone. Catherine and Dave here from Fantasy Fitnessing. We're just going to go through a quick sort of things we're watching for week 2 and week 3 of the CrossFit semifinals. Just some quick hits to get you interested in the semifinals, and there will be more details of all these semis in our preview shows. So, quick hits starting off on the Mid-Atlantic CrossFit Challenge.
All right, so over at the MAC, number one thing I'm looking for, watching Chandler Smith on the floor. So he is, come and say this is his best CrossFit season so far. So kind of looking forward to seeing him go side by side with Fikowski and Sam Quant, who is also having a big comeback year. So interesting to see those three guys compete at top. On the women's side, Brooke Wells will be making her return to the competition floor. So she's showed up pretty good for both the open and quarterfinals. So interesting to see how she does at the semifinal field. And then on the women's side as well, doesn't have the top end depth that some of the other fields do. So I think this is really going to create some space for some of the younger athletes to come in. So kind of like a Kyra Milligan, Cindy McCallison, who was at the games last year, Emma Gardner, who's been training out at CFNE for years. So interesting to see if one of them can make a move up into
Yeah,
a
those are all good
qualifying
things to
spot.
look forward to. The biggest one is Brooke Wells. She was having such a great games, and then that elbow injury. I really hope she can come back. And really happy with how she's been doing, but super excited to see her on the competition floor. And then next for the week 2 semifinals is the fittest in Cape Town.
Yeah, so I think the storyline here is seeing if anybody is able to dethrone the champs. So you got Jason Smith, who's kind of the perennial favorite out of the group at the games last year. He had an interesting training regime between quarterfinals and semifinals by competing in a boxing match. So be interesting to see if any of the other guys in the field can unseat him. Looking for, I guess, Ruin Duvenage, Kaylin Henry. They were both 2-3 last year, both in quarterfinals, and 2-3 this year. Ruin Duvenage seems to be kind of more of the steady as she goes with just kind of consistent finishes right up there, where Kaylin Henry is, either hitting a home run or striking out. Quarterfinals this year, he had 3 event wins out of the 5 events. So it'll be interesting to see those guys. Someone else to look for, kind of a bit younger of the group, is 4th place finisher in quarterfinals, Richard Woldboat, training out of CrossFit Invictus Black Bay. So he was up there, and a bit younger guy in the field. On the women's side, Michelle Bassinet made it to the games last year. She actually finished 2nd in quarterfinals this year, albeit it sounded like she had some food poisoning issues at the time. So there are kind of a group of women there: Michelle Morand, Lee Cruz, Gemma Rader, Dina Swift, and Christina Leva Ducatis. They're all really bunched in there in quarterfinals. So I think this one could actually be a tougher competition to make it out of than it might seem on the surface.
It's kind of fun to see because there is only one spot, and with sport, you want to see people competing for that spot. And I remember watching Ruin Duvenage and Keelan Henry last year at the Fittest in Cape Town, and they were fun to watch. So I'm really looking forward to that men's field again. And yeah, having a bunch of women sort of clumped up at the top part of the quarterfinal leaderboard is also going to make for an exciting show. All right, that is week 2. Week 3, we have the Far East Throwdown.
Yeah, so for the Far East Throwdown, I think the biggest storyline here is who's going to be there competing. I think, Snorri Barron, manager for a lot of the athletes, has, posted a few really good posts on Instagram, just kind of highlighting the challenges that some of the athletes go. Sounds like at this point, Roman Krennikov will be going to South Korea. His kind of return to the U.S. is kind of up in the air just based off his visa issues. So we'll see him there. And Alexander Ilin, who also qualified for the games last year on the men's side. But it sounds like a good chunk of the top 5 or 6 men will not be able to compete in person, which is a bit too bad there. And then seeing some of the other contenders on the women's side, Choi will be returning, who made it to the games last year, but the other games athletes from Russia won't be competing this year. So there is at least one spot for a games rookie to make.
And that's always fun. Getting to know some new names out of these areas will just be better to bring up the sport, have more people from different boxes getting to the games will only do good things. And on to Granite Games.
So Granite Games, I think kind of the big news so far in the semifinals has been Mal O'Brien being moved to this event. And I think for me, I'm really looking forward to see her matching up against Barnhart throughout the weekend. So looking at last season at the games, so Mal O'Brien was 7th, Barnhart was 9th, only 27 points between them. And then at Rogue, O'Brien was 8th, Barnhart was 10th with just 15 points between them. So they paired up very similarly last year in kind of the 2 main competitions they were at. So it'll be interesting to see whether if Mal O'Brien training under Matt Fraser has a huge jump here, or if they are going to be battling back and forth. I think this will be a real test to see, if Mal O'Brien has been able to make that big jump from a competitiveness that everybody's expecting, or if Barnhart is able to, again, her level of competitiveness has grown over the off season. So seeing those go head to head will really shape where both of them finish at.
Yeah, that's a fun
Madison.
head-to-head to watch. That's the one sort of nice thing about the semifinals is we have the big names in smaller fields, so it's easier to actually see how they're doing against each other when they're in that 8th to 10th range. Like you're on the outside lanes of the first heat in Madison, whereas right now these two are probably going to be in the center lanes most of the weekend. Awesome. So that is our little quick hits for week 2 and week 3 of the semifinals. We will do full preview shows for all of these semis. So make sure you have liked and subscribed and follow us on Instagram to make sure that you know when everything drops. That's it for us today. Have a good one.
Thank you, Catherine and Dave. That was awesome. If you want to see more from Catherine and Dave, make sure you check them out on their Instagram at Fantasy Fitnessing and right here on the Clydesdale Media Podcast Network. Finally, we have a special treat for you. Wanted to say a special thank you to our moms. So first up is Tom Lennon, who interviewed his mom.
All right, guys, welcome to a very special edition of the Rig Report. I'm your host, Thomas Lennon, and my guest is my mom, Mary Lennon. How's it going today?
Very good, thank you.
Well, I want to thank you for coming on the show because, we're doing a Mother's Day special, so I kind of wanted to, talk to let the people know who you are and, how you handled 4 kids at one time and, managing an adult with diabetes too as well.
Well, having 4 children was nuts, so tough. It was pretty good. You guys were great kids to have, It was like you were always a lot of fun. And even with the trials and tribulations, I still look back and so grateful for you guys. So grateful. And as for you, I'm very proud of how you've handled being diagnosed at a later time in your life with diabetes. I'm so proud because you didn't let it define you. You kind of embraced it and made it empower you, which was awesome to know. To work for children, to donate money to help find cures for juvenile diabetes, even the work you've done when you were up here in Boston at the hospitals with kids with diabetes, how you encourage them and also not lectured, but counseled them on it doesn't define you. It's, it's something that you have and you just go with it, do what you want and learn how to manage everything. Not everybody's the same. Everybody has to manage their life different. So diabetes doesn't make it any different, So you should take care of yourself. So I'm very proud of you for all that work that you're done here in Massachusetts, as well as what you're doing there in Georgia.
Yeah.
Very proud of you.
Thank you very much. So going back to managing 4 kids, back when I was younger, I didn't really realize how crazy and stressful because it was for you until I realized me having 2 kids. And granted, that's half of what you had to deal with. And how did you manage stressful situations or, pretty much handling 4 kids all at once and one of us disappears and you're okay, where's the other one? How did you do all that?
I have to honestly say, you guys, when it came to Dad and I was kind of like the bad cop, I guess. He was the good cop.
Yep.
So it's it was great because when you stand by my side, if I don't see you by my side, the consequences are grim. You guys never left my side. And but you're always fun. You figure we have this huge yard here in Massachusetts, and You guys, you were like adventure kids. You would be outside early in the morning, sometimes asking to have lunch outside, and you wouldn't come in till dinner. And and we were involved in things, which was great too. And everybody participated in each other's activities and stuff like that, which was great.
Mhm.
And I have to say, you guys encouraged each other tremendously. And I had the pleasure of sitting back and watching, especially you mentoring, like your sister for lacrosse. And I'll have a funny story is how you mentored her. You toughened her up for the lacrosse team, but I remember taking her to the the doctor went out to speak to another doctor because he thought I was abusing your sister. So I said, no, that would be her brother. He's tough on her when it came to lacrosse, which a couple of years later, she ends up on the men's lacrosse team.
Yep, for
in
D3 school.
college.
Yep. Yeah.
And she was their starter as a freshman, and she was their powerhouse player. It was amazing. She was the only girl on an all, men's team.
Mm-hmm.
This is what I mean. You guys always, even when the chips were down, you were always there encouraging each other, which was kind of nice. So it kind of made parenting easy until you guys got in trouble,
Yeah.
Then I had to be a bad cop and,
Well, I
as you well know.
yeah. I always remember if you said no, I would always go to Dad and he would say like something else. And like finally he realized he was catching on. He's like, wait a second, did you talk to your mom first? And we're like,
Yeah.
No. So yeah, that's and we finally realized it's not gonna work. So I guess no means no. So
It's like, yeah, he resorted to what your mother say.
yeah, exactly. I'm at that point now too as well. So I know you've sacrificed a lot, like raising us kids. Yeah, you did. I think you did.
Nah.
No.
I enjoyed what I did. I enjoyed, I wanted 10 kids. And, but unfortunately I could only have 4. But remember, we had foster kids here too.
Yep.
Which you guys, again, mentoring all 4 of you. When we took in 4 foster children from the same family, we took in 4 children. How you guys embraced them and made them like siblings, and they were with us for 2 years.
Yeah.
Before their lives got back together again.
Yeah.
And that was great. And so I had 8 kids at the same time. And that's when I said, thank you, God, for only 4. Because you knew better than me.
Yeah. And also I do remember, like, especially when I was at boot camp and like, it was kind of over and, you'd have, people in my flight that didn't have their parents there. And so, I would, you would make sure, like, I would tell them like, hey, these kids don't have like their parents with them. So you would tap their shoulder to kind of let them know like, hey, come with us. And, I do remember when, you had we had like 4 other guys with us and we were eating Subway and you paid for everything for lunch.
Yes.
And so, and you were, I know, I always remembered like you being super generous to anybody that was like lending a hand, and I think it's kind of rubbed off on me a little bit because sometimes I'm too generous than I should be. So, but
yeah, that's a inherited fault. Yes.
Yeah. but like, where did that all come from?
Well, we had somebody building a retaining wall here, is an example. And I would always give this guy breakfast and at lunch. Sometimes he'd be here for dinner and I'd invite him in for dinner. And some of my siblings would say, why are you doing that? You're paying him to do a wall. But I relate a story that my father, if anybody came into his restaurant and they said, can you give me something? I really don't have a lot of money. He would sit them down and give them a hot meal and never charge them or say you owe me or anything like that. And because he ran a hotel, bar, and restaurant, and even if someone couldn't pay for a room and it was cold and snowy, wet, whatever, he'd say, okay, just come on till you settle yourself.
Mm-hmm.
You know, so he was like that. And my mom was like that too. She was very giving woman, very giving. And I guess it just rubbed off, because even my father said, there's always someone worse off than you. You know, sometimes putting out a hand can lift them up. So you should try doing that in your life, because it becomes rewarding after a while. And it was. And so now this fellow that we fed and, you know, we made him welcome, he said, I did some landscaping for you and gardening when you weren't here. And it was absolutely stunning. And he didn't charge me for it. He says, I just did this because you're so good to me. And, you know, and see, it comes back,
Mm-hmm.
you know, and you don't expect it. But it was so nice that he did that, you know. So occasionally we invite him back and say, come sit on the porch, have pizza with us.
hang out with the grandkids.
There you go. And yes, and all the grandkids knew him. The boys knew him, and he put them to work, and they'd carry these stones with him to put on the wall and stuff. And so they all knew him. The same thing when we had that, people were working on the house. Same thing, you know.
Mm-hmm.
And when we have delivery from, now it's like everything Amazon, and these guys come and they deliver, and I go, would you like some water or Gatorades or anything? They go, yeah. Do you have any? I go, yeah. So I give it to them, you know?
Yep.
So, and now some of, even the postmen know us, and it's just nice, because now we're friends, you know. It's a friendly world in our little environment here, as opposed to what's going on out there now.
Mm-hmm. Yeah. And kind of going off of that. So I know you've had, you know, you've lost a little bit of weight, you know, here and there. And so, and I commend you for, you know, losing all the weight, especially with having 4 kids. I mean, it could have been hard, because like some kids are picky with eating, you know, and so seeing you going from, you know, where you were in the beginning to, you know, losing a lot of weight was, you know, very inspiring for me. And like, I was really happy that you were, you know, because you always complain about like, you know, having all this weight on you, and then losing all the weight, you know, just seeing you a lot happier, which was like, you know, pretty cool to see. And so what was your experience? What was your experience going from, you know, where you were to, you know, losing all that weight?
Well, type 2 diabetes, 1.
Yeah.
I didn't want to have to go on any kind of medication, which they were going to put me on. And I said, give me a month or 2 and I'll be back. And so when I went back to the doctor, I no longer, you know, my AC1 was 5 or something like that. So anyway, but doing the weight loss made me realize how much it is important that I do this, and that I do strengthening and stuff, because your dad having Parkinson's and dementia, I have to be on my game.
Yep.
You know, and
Mm-hmm.
we want to stay here. We want to enjoy our home, especially Dad. You know, it's like he put a lot of effort into this house, and he, you know, for as long as we could stay. And so that would, beside the type 2 diabetes being the motivator, you know, that to get healthy, and then losing like the 130 pounds, it was like, oh, I'm better off this way for me, but also for Dad,
Mm-hmm.
you know, because
Mm-hmm.
I can do more for him, and he
Yeah.
eats better too. So,
Very cool.
you know, yeah. So now he thinks, you know, it's like, wow, now I got a girlfriend.
So
Not knowing it's still me.
yeah. So I have 2 last questions. One of them is, what is your definition of a mom?
What is my definition of a mom? unconditional love, very unconditional love, and tough love, which, you know, it's a hard thing to do because some people, if their child is hurting, sometimes parents will do whatever they want to, so that they think the kid will be happy. As we all know, because we went through this, it's tough love. It's like, no, this is the way it is, and you got to be able to do that. And you know, and it's the hardest thing for a parent to do, but you know, it's something that has to be. So it's love, unconditional love, and tough love. That's what it is, you know.
Okay. Yep.
Just being, then you end up being extremely proud, like I am, and Dad, of all of you, how successful you guys are. You know, how, you know, what a good life, wholesome life you guys have. It's great.
Yeah.
You know.
So, last question. So, what would you tell a new mom what to expect with their whole journey through motherhood?
All I could say is love that child, unconditional love. You know, just what I told you before, sometimes it's tough love and stuff like that. Every child is different. No kid's a textbook example. As we all know, it's everybody has their own issues, and it's like you help that child deal with who they are. It doesn't matter what other people think. It's who do you want to be? You know, who are you? You know, and this and that. You let that kid be who they are and support it. You know, that's all I say. You know, because as we know, 4 kids, 4 different personalities. What's good for one isn't necessarily good for the other.
Yep.
So, you know, you deal with however many children you have, they're individuals in that family. As well as a family, they're also individuals with their own needs and expectations and stuff like that. You know, that's about it.
Yeah. Well, Mom, I really do appreciate you taking the time and talking to me about, you know, our Mother's Day special. So, and I'm truly grateful to have you as a mom. You know, I love you very much.
I love
You
you.
know,
And where's my type 1 lifting shirt?
I'll get it. So I've got you a bunch. So, and you know, I think, you know, there's a lot of traits in me that have come from you, and I mean, obviously my good looks from Dad. So
For sure.
yeah,
Definitely.
yeah. But you know, I've learned a lot just from like watching you, and I truly appreciate everything you've done for me and the other 3 of my sisters. And, you know, thank you very much for, you know, being my mom.
Oh, thank you. I had no choice. You know.
All right.
But you know, I'm very proud of you, Tommy. I'm really proud of you. And your family. What a beautiful family. And it just shows with you and Sarah. I mean, the kids are absolutely just adorable. I miss them terribly. But good job, good parenting. You could tell by how wonderful your children are.
Thanks,
So
Mom.
proud of you. Proud of
Appreciate
you.
it.
Okay.
Thank you, Tom. Thank you so much to all of our moms. That's it for this week. If you liked what you heard, hit that like button, subscribe to the channel, and make sure you hit the notifier so you're the first to know when we put out new content. We'll see you next time on The Rig Report.